I don't think comprehensible input is the best way to learn a language if you are just trying to impress people with the appearance that you know a language. And I say this because I just recently did a short the other day, or put out a short, where I was explaining the verb llevar in Spanish. And I noticed there was a few people in the comments who were like correcting me um, about things. And I thought about the nature of being corrected. And I thought about how, correcting people is kind of an ego trip. It's like some people just like to correct you. First of all, the point of the video was that chevar doesn't have a good equivalent in English. And that the point I was making was that you shouldn't translate your target language through your native language. You shouldn't go target language, native language, meaning. You should go target language directly to meaning. That was the point of the short. But there is some pedantic people who told me that chevar, I said chevar means to wear. And then someone was like, oh, chevar puesto means to wear, blah, blah, blah. And they criticized the fact that I say chevar with the Argentinian dialect. Well, they didn't know that. Basically, I dated an Argentinian girl, so I learned Spanish with an Argentinian dialect. I chose to. So now it's just naturally how I speak Spanish. And this person put his first thing that he was correcting me on was there's no such thing as chevar. It's llevar. Well, it's hard to it's just written out. He's like, there's no such thing as chevar. He put it with a ch. And then I was like, well, the first thing that did to me was suggest that this person probably didn't know Spanish super well, because you have to be a pretty new learner to not realize that there's an entire Argentinian dialect. At least you wouldn't learn that if you did a method like traditional learning where you only use Duolingo. Sure, you probably would get pretty far not realizing there's an entire piece of the world that uses she in place of je. Yeah. I can't even make the sounds super well because I don't use them, like llevo, llevo, chevo. I just decided to learn that way, guys. So anyway, that was my first hint that this person wasn't the most serious of Spanish learners. And then he told me that chevar means more like to bring, to carry, and I said that in high school they teach you that it means to wear. And then I thought to myself, oh yeah, actually I think chevarse is to wear, right? But again, I'm not going off grammar, vocab lists, or anything. I'm just going off comprehensible input. So me reading that comment kind of made me realize that, first of all, I think my Spanish was probably a million times better than that person. Yo puedo cambiar mi idioma ahora y hablar contigo completamente, naturalmente, fluidamente en español sin problema. And I'm sure that other person could not. So, to me, learning Spanish is not about correcting people, because I'm sure I make mistakes. It's about understanding and speaking the language. But I think for a certain sect of people, language learning is more about demonstrating intelligence. Right? I just had to make sure I was recording my voice. I didn't want to be talking into this mic for no reason. So there's a whole sect of people who I think get into language learning just to go to Thanksgiving and say, hey guys, I speak Spanish, French, German, whatever. And if that's what you want to do with language learning, then comprehensible input isn't the method for you. I'm assuming everybody watching this video knows what comprehensible input is. If you don't, go watch my other videos. I have a whole series on it that I'm making. But I was thinking, comprehensible input, it's not flashy. Like, I was thinking about how if I've taken in 150 hours of input or 1,000 hours of input, which is where I'm at close to now, it would be really hard for someone who doesn't speak Spanish to notice a difference, because to them, if I'm speaking Spanish, they can't understand it anyway. So I could mostly be speaking gibberish to people who don't speak Spanish, and they would think I'm speaking Spanish, as long as I, as long as I was, as long as I was convincing, then that's that. And comprehensible input doesn't give you this whole kind of trivia based approach where your family might say, oh, well, what does this mean in Spanish? Or how do you do this grammar thing in Spanish? Like, a comprehensible input learner wouldn't be good at that. What we would be much better at doing is listening to content and, down the line, speaking the language. Obviously around 1,000 hours, I can speak Spanish pretty well. But in the beginning, I wasn't the best Spanish speaker. But people who do Duolingo, they could really be better than you at like pretending to speak the language because they could have pre-planned sentences. They could construct sentences in their head better, probably, if they're just used to like treating language learning as a memory game. So all this to say that Duolingo people, like, it's actually probably the best way of learning a language if you just want to learn it to the point where people think you know the language. So you can walk around saying, I know 6 languages. I've seen this a lot where someone says, oh, my friend speaks this, that, and this language. Now, I understand if they're like a exchange student who lived in China and Italy, they probably speak many languages. I don't doubt that. But a lot of people inflate the number of languages they actually speak. And what I'm especially weary of or skeptical of is somebody who's younger than me who speaks like 6 languages, allegedly. Because as a comprehensible input learner, I realize how long it takes to actually speak 6 languages. Like, it took me 2 years to get to the point of Spanish I'm at now, where I could say well, maybe a little bit less, 1.5 years. But that's a like intense learning. At some points I was doing 3 to 4 hours a day of listening. So it took me a long time to get to where I am. So when someone just walks up and is like, yeah, I speak 6 languages, you're like, you can immediately, from the vibe, you could probably tell what's going on. Because if they said that like as if it was nothing, you would probably immediately know this person is full. But if they said it like in like a way of like just it just happened in conversation, you mention it, I just feel like I could personally determine who's lying and who's not lying just based on the way it was brought up in conversation. Older people, I tend to trust more because they've had more years to actually learn languages. Again, I'm 27. If someone younger than me said they spoke 3, 4, 5 languages, I would immediately be like, okay, like what does that even mean, really? Because like I could say that I speak Portuguese and Italian because for my website Lengualytics, sometimes I'm watching videos in Italian and Portuguese, and I tend to understand them if there's subtitles and they're intermediate level because they're just so similar to Spanish. So do I speak Italian and Portuguese? I wouldn't say I do because I actually can't produce any. I can produce some sentences because of some of the comprehensible input videos, intros and outros that I can remember. But I'm not like I wouldn't go around saying I speak Italian and Portuguese. But sometimes I honestly feel like I'm probably better at those languages than the people who do say they speak them. You go on Duolingo, you do Duolingo for a year. My Portuguese and Italian are probably better than yours, just as a result of me watching Spanish. But I guess the whole reason this came up to me is because I was thinking about the reasons people learn languages, and I was thinking about comprehensible input's place in the language learning community broadly. And I don't think it might never go fully mainstream just because it's not flashy and it doesn't demonstrate intelligence like Duolingo, like Duolingo does, where, you'll probably be able to remember certain words and know certain grammar rules and things like that. Or I should say traditional language learning broadly. Like traditional language learning broadly will make you much more impressive to other people than comprehensible input will, or at least the return on investment for listening to hours and hours and hours of comprehensible input, it's just not worth it if your goal is to impress. It's just not. So that's why I wanted to make this shorter video today to talk about that. And I think that the guy who commented on my short is a good microcosm, because the first thing he said, oh, there's no such thing as chevar. It's like you're completely unaware of an entire dialect of Spanish, and like that's embarrassing. That's really embarrassing if you're out here trying to correct people. And I think comprehensible input can actually humble you, because if you do comprehensible input, you might not always be able to demonstrate how great you are at understanding your target language, and especially in the beginning. I personally, at 150 hours, you'll be able to demonstrate it pretty well, but you'd be able to demonstrate it much faster if you just skipped all that and just did some traditional learning and you had some pre-planned sentences to show people, and yeah, that's how I think about it. My nose is a little bit stuffy because I'm in Massachusetts. I'm in my home state. I'll show you the outside. As you see, that's not Florida out there. That is Massachusetts. Oh, let's get the light back. There's also no good natural lighting in this state. The entire state is void of natural light. It gets dark at like 4 p.m., so it's very hard to make videos. Anyway, if you made it this far in the video and you don't know who I am, my name is Nick. I created a language learning application or a website where you can track your progress, I feel like this camera's tilted now. Oh, it is. All right. I hope you don't notice, but I created a website called Lengualytics where you can track your comprehensible input progress. So it's basically you can just track your input by pasting in URLs of things you watched, and then you can I track your comprehension and the difficulty of those resources. I pool all the resources together so everybody who uses the site can find these resources. So it's a great place to find and track your comprehensible input. I'm really grieved because I know Spanish learners know about this. I know French learners know about this, and German learners know about this because of Dreaming Spanish's work mostly. But Portuguese, English learners, they really don't know about comprehensible input, and I really want to get this out to them. So if you know a Portuguese learner or an English learner, please show them my videos or show them the website, because I just need to reach these people. And also, the sad thing is, in English, there's a good amount of comprehensible input. There's not the most on YouTube, at least, but Portuguese is so behind on comprehensible input, and Italian, same thing. So, my opinion, I really think we just need more comprehensible input creators. And I think my website, the whole point of it is to empower people to make comprehensible input, because it's a whole ecosystem where people can track their content, and we can kind of formalize the process a bit of learning through comprehensible input as much as possible. So that's a little bit about Lengualytics. It's a surprise Lengualytics advertisement. I just did this entire video with like a freaking mohawk. Oh my god. You can't really see it. Oh, you kind of can. It's not going down anyway. Okay, well, I'll throw a clip in the front. I'll throw a clip in the beginning of me saying my hair. Now, who cares? Okay. Goodbye, everybody, and thank you for watching.